Okay, you ready, brothers?
Moment of truth, mate.
Moment of truth. Oh my god. So much apricot, pineapple. Oh my god.
You made this. We made this.
We made this.
The world needs to know.
Hey homebrewers, beer geeks and hopheads. Now as we start to ramp up the amount of homebrewing that we're doing on the craft beer channel, I've been thinking long and hard about New England IPA. Because it's one of our favourite styles, but it's also probably the hardest thing to brew at home. It takes a lot of different malts, it takes a huge amount of hops, and at any point all of your hard work could be ruined by even the tiniest amount of oxidation. And I've learned that the hard way. If you've been following us for a couple of years, you'll know that we actually brewed the second ever New England IPA in the UK in collaboration with Gypsy Hill. And that beer, Drifter, was absolutely delicious. And we did a homebrew version of it on the channel, which I could never get quite as good as the commercial batch. In fact, nowhere near as good. It seems I'm better at cask ale. Oh my God. But then an opportunity presented itself because one of the best IPA brewers in the world, Verdant, have teamed up with Lallemand, a global yeast supplier, to release their house yeast for everyone to use. And that is super exciting because unlike West Coast IPA, huge amounts of the flavour, the body, the whole character of those beers comes from the yeast. Now we love the guys at Verdant and we absolutely love their beers. We've been down there a couple of times. And we've also been to Lallemand's yeast factory in Austria, and there's a video coming up somewhere here. And when they decided to release this dry yeast to the world, they asked us if we wanted to give it a little trial. And that's not an opportunity I was going to let pass by, especially since Verdant's head brewer James said I could ask him any questions I wanted to in preparation for me brewing an IPA with it.
So are you making notes on this? Are you going through,
I'm making notes, don't you worry. It's fair to say I took advantage of that. So James, thanks for taking some time out to have a little chat with us. I guess my first question would be, this is your house yeast. How did it come about? Where did you find it?
We ordered in a pitch of London Ale 3 and started to pitch it, harvest it, crop it, keep it going. And we noticed the characteristics that we really liked, sent them off to be analysed, and they found, the lab we sent it to found like two or three sack strains and 2 wild strains.
Oh, right.
And I was like, are any of these like dominant? And they said, yeah, one of the sack strains is far more dominant than the other two. And I said, brilliant. Can you bank that one, please? And that's it. So we've just kind of been calling off props of this and using it over and over. And I think it is actually a bit distinct to regular sort of London Ale 3 culture. It is its own little thing.
So what was it about that dominant sack strain that you loved?
It's very distinct. It's got a vanilla note, I pick up, huge apricot vibes. Do you remember the apricot Munch Bunch yogurts?
Hell yeah. So what would your tips be for using this yeast as a home brewer? We're going to be aiming for a 6 to 7% IPA.
So you can really play around with it. You can put some more complex sugars in there, so you can vary your malt bill. You can use some caramel's, and it basically, it just doesn't like the complex stuff. You can mess around with the duration of your mash steps as well, keep those sugar chains a bit longer. Just it's very flexible, really. Right,
hops. Okay, so most home brewers, I think, they'll do their boil additions. That's fine. We might whirlpool it in our grain father below 80 degrees, try and tease out a little bit more aroma. What do you think we can achieve on a homebrew scale to really pump up that hop aroma, get as much utilisation as we can once we're in the fermenter?
You say you're using buckets, Johnny?
I'm probably going to be using buckets here, James.
See you later. No, I'm joking. if you were just to open the fermenter, throw the hops in, you're going to be introducing oxygen to that headspace, and over time, especially when you crash chill it, you're going to be introducing quite a lot of O2 to the beer, and that will just ruin your beer very quickly. So in your case, I would say open the lid and throw the hops in and close it really quickly. How's that?
I mean, that's what I do normally, James. So what I'm thinking is, when I threw the tap at the bottom, push CO2 up through the beer.
Yeah, you could do that, exactly.
Yeah.
You could do that. You could create a positive CO2 pressure when you're dry hopping. So, in fact, we can't. On some days we mimic something similar. Here, bubble CO2 through the little tap whilst you're opening the lid, so you actually get a bubble of CO2, a blanket that's coming out. Throw your dry hops in, and then kind of rest the lid on top, but still keep the CO2 going, so it kind of bubbles out a little bit, just for 30 seconds more. Seal it up. Once they've rehydrated, just go back and bubble some more CO2, so you break up the hop that's all collected at the top. It can clump up quite a lot. So you break all that up, and also any that's sort of settled down, you get a good convection current. And I would say that's it, then chill it down to 0.
I will bottle a purged bottle of our force carbonated final version. I'm going to send that down to Verdant to get your verdict.
Cool. And do you want me to do a live stream video where all 16 members of the team try it?
Okay, it'll be a big bottle. And
corny keg down, you all right?
So the entire Verdant brew team is going to be trying this beer, which kind of ups the ante a little bit. And I've got a lot to think about. You see, the actual brew day, that's the easy part. The cellaring is really difficult, and that's kind of new to me. Using some more advanced techniques to get as much hop extraction, hop flavour as we can without doing anything that might cause any oxidation. And I'm determined to do all of this in the simplest way possible so that you guys can try it at home. Now, before we get to that, we've got to design the recipe. James gave me a lot to think about when it comes to the malt bill of this New England IPA, and the malt bill is kind of underestimated when it comes to these recipes, because there's a lot of different things that we need to get in there that's going to add malt flavour, malt character, fermentable sugars, and lots of body, so that we get a rich velvety beer and a really big rocky head that's important to this style. I'm actually going to use the malt bill of Even Sharks Need Water, which is Verdant's kind of galaxy-led IPA, and it has this gorgeous, rich gold colour that almost emits light rather than sort of reflects it. It's that golden. Water profile is super important when it comes to New England IPAs, and because drinking London tap water basically tastes like chewing on a tap, I'm actually going to use bottled water, which isn't the most ethical thing to do, but otherwise this beer just will not taste like it's supposed to. And to that bottled water, I'm going to be adding calcium chloride and some table salts and other bits and pieces to make sure we get that lovely, rich, velvety, cloudy kind of beer. Now, we all know about the yeast by this point, so the final question is the hops, and for that I need my hop-headed friend Brad to come in and give me his opinions. So I've gone on to Malt Miller and I've selected all of my favourite hops, and he's going to come in and help me on the day to select them. That's right, we're doing it, flying by the seat of our pants, as always. So it's brew day. Welcome to the video, Brad.
Hey man, pleasure.
I feel like I've done most of the hard work already, but the recipe is basically set except for the hops, which I know sounds mad, but we learned a huge amount when we went over to Trogs in Pennsylvania. I think one of the most underrated breweries in the world.
Got to be up there.
Yeah, they were stunning. And they gave us a little masterclass in how they put together their hop bills for their recipes. And we learned something super interesting about putting hops next to the things that we think they smell like to check any biases, to see if it's right. But also we learned about what I now call the 3-bucket rule.
Okay.
Right, and the 3-bucket rule is that you should generally have 3 hops in your beer. Like, single hop beers are great at working out what a beer is going to be like, but it's not going to give you a balanced beer. So he said, your man, one of the Trogs, I forget which,
yes,
said if you have 3 hops, you use one as a base layer that's got all the rich, beautiful, kind of full-on flavours.
Right.
You've then got the second bucket, the medium layer, and that's going to fill in any gaps that might be missing from that initial base layer. And then you've got the top layer, which is just adding little things that sing, where you go like, oh, there's a hint of this or a hint of that. Or
so it's everything comes together in unity and harmony.
Exactly.
Hopefully.
Yeah. And to start with, what we need to do is try a beer with the yeast we're about to use, which we happily have here from Verdant.
Nice.
They've put Citra in there, so that might be handy, and they've put Strata, which is another new hop, which we don't have in front of us. But what we need to do is pick out those yeast flavours and see what we're going to get and what we need to layer on top of it.
Okay.
Firstly, that smells fucking amazing.
Wow.
Loads of citrus and hints of pine and really green hop, but also loads of juice.
So juicy.
Yeah, but underneath that is a really sweet kind of apricot peach thing. You getting that?
I am. Mate, they're not bad at making beer.
They're not bad at making IPA, Jesus. There's definitely vanilla. When James said that when I was chatting to him, I was a little bit sceptical.
Well, yeah, like a kind of sugary milkiness that has a sweet finish, like you said.
Like those the milk bottle sweets that you used to get. It's that kind of yeasty ester that we're getting.
Subtle, but it's there.
Yeah.
Without a doubt.
Just on that finish. So we've got to find something that's going to match with that. Matching is not all about getting the same flavours.
Right.
It's about complementing them. So we're probably going to want some contrast, like what they've done there with that nice greenness and that kind of juicy citric hop aroma is to balance that very sweet yeast profile that they've created.
Right.
So we're going to have to do the same here. So let's get into some hops. Should we start with Citra? Because most great IPAs do start with that
Might
hop.
as well start at the top, eh?
There's some Citra for you.
Oh, it's so big. It's just a great hop, isn't it?
It's literally the aroma and indeed the pellets are leaping out. So I reckon these are the two that could be our base.
So what's that
hop.
one?
So this is Galaxy.
Galaxy, right.
So they're both known as big, abrasive, exciting hops. Grapefruit peel, really resiny as well, this Citra.
Just want to live in there, Johnny.
So Galaxy is actually a little bit more floral on the nose, which I did not expect.
I'm instantly drawn to the Citra.
You are?
Yeah.
So if we're going to go with Citra, I think we could all guess that was going to happen, probably. We need to look for some mid-tones. Now, I think we should start at Mosaic. I just love what James at Verdant describes as like 80s gym sock kind of dankness to it on top of that juice.
It's funky, isn't it? Is it one
That's
of those?
not-
It's one of those sort of smells that smells a bit wrong, but you're kind of drawn to it. Yeah, it's weedy.
It's very, very weedy. That's what you get. You get weed. There's no pine or resin. It's just, well, a bit of resin, like dank resin stickiness, but really weedy and a little bit over-fermented, overripe mango kind of vibes.
Doesn't present itself to be quite as sweaty at this point, does it?
No. No, I mean, it's all down to the harvest as well, which is why you should always try your hops before you use them in a recipe, because Mosaic, this is the 2019 harvest, so as fresh as it can get. The 2018 harvest now is going to be very different to the 2019 harvest, and it's going to be very different to what it was when it was first packaged. So you need to know what the actual hops are. Don't just assume that using Mosaic means you're going to get that character.
Juicy.
Citric juicy.
Citric juicy.
Funky juicy.
Funky juicy.
So now, let's give Nelson a go. So Nelson is an Antipodean hop. It's from New Zealand. And it's most famous, as the name might suggest, Sauvin, for having white grape qualities.
Nice. So it's like a gentleman's hop. It's like a New World wine kind of vibe.
Let's give this a go.
Different smell.
Yeah,
As soon as you
already.
opened that, I was like, whoa.
Honeysuckle?
Oh my god, I don't know what honeysuckle smells like.
Very spring-like.
It's quite fresh.
I'm not getting any grape or any gooseberry, which is what
it's
Nelson's famous for.
Right.
But obviously, all these hops will, as their basically biochemistry changes during the fermentation process, or during the boiling process, or during the flame-out process. All of these flavour compounds will change as well. So what we're getting here is not exactly what's going to be in the beer, but we're going to use it as a base. Whereas Brew 1, I can always pick out. There's a couple of hops I just know instantly.
So this is like pretty new.
Yeah, it's a relatively new hop,
Right.
an American hop.
Yeah.
And it's known for massive pineapple nuts.
Pineapple.
Yeah, and it's right there. Pineapple skin.
Yeah.
Like just sniffing the outside of it. Like it's quite leafy, but also it's pineapple-y.
Oh, I like that. I do like that.
I mean, the pineapple will be great at cutting through that vanilla-y, apricot-y yogurt kind of vibe. It's the most acidic kind of smell to cut right through. So I think Brew 1's definitely in. I think Citra's definitely in. And I think Mosaic's definitely in.
I think we stick to 3. And we have the 3 bucket rule. We know it works.
It works for Trogs.
Works for Trogs. They make some cracking beers.
So I'm just going to do some quick Brewer's Friend. And then it's brew time.
Brew time.
Once mashed in, we gave it an hour at 67 degrees, then mashed out at the usual 75, hitting 1.060. The next step was to watch the kettle slowly boil and then add, well, not a lot. We will be adding 3 grams. 3 grams of Magnum. I thought we were making an IPA, Brad. Pathetic. We then had 60 minutes to weigh out lots more lovely green gold for our whirlpool stage. Okay, so I've chilled us down to just under 80 degrees, which is when we're going to add all of our whirlpool additions and start whirlpooling, which means I'm going to get even more sweaty. So in goes 40 grams of Citra, 30 grams of Mosaic, and 20 grams of Brew 1. Whirlpooling is exactly as it sounds, and you can use a drill or do it by hand. The process extracts lots of aroma and flavour, but a lot less bitterness than it would if the liquid was boiling. And it also makes a cone of hops in the middle of your kettle so it doesn't clog your filter when it comes to transferring. It's pretty common in the comments for us to be asked why we haven't started a brewery, and every time I homebrew, I'm reminded of why. The beautiful yeast is now pitched, it's safely away in here. Something you won't have seen in our homebrew videos is this little bad boy. So this is a thermostat usually used for a fish tank, and that's going to keep our fermentation temperature around 19 degrees. You can see it's just about there right now, even though the fridge is empty. And that's going to make sure that this yeast is working in the best possible way at the temperature that it really likes to, because really, all that was a huge faff, like that really complicated malt bill, the huge amount of hops that went in at the end. But the most important stuff with these New England IPAs is what's going to happen next. It's going to be that biotransformation. It's going to be that avoiding any oxidation character, and it's going to be getting the absolute most from those hops that we're going to add. We've got hundreds and hundreds of grams to add during the fermentation. But before we get to all of that, this goes in the fridge, and with that done, it's job done. No, wait, we have to clean up.